Welcome to the podcast. We have a very interesting and exciting conversation coming up with Jason Campbell, founder of Zen Wellness. Jason has helped lots of entrepreneurs with maintaining well-being and navigating the world of all the stressors you encounter as an entrepreneur. And he's going to talk about how we can do this through the busy tax season or as an entrepreneur so we can function at our best capacity and maintain well-being. He also is working on tons of other interesting projects in virtual reality and in music, and he also bought a town. Very interesting conversation, and then we go into some practices that you can use and implement right away to maintain your best mental state and healthness and best well-being through the stressors you have as an entrepreneur or a tax accountant. Listen, it's going to be a fantastic episode, and subscribe if you want to hear more. Thank you so much for joining us today, and for my team for listening in. We are joined by Jason Campbell. He's a really well-rounded entrepreneur working on tons of stuff here. Talk about stress management, and we're going to talk about his projects in buying a town. That's right. He bought a town with his friends, a ghost town, but still we're going to talk about some very interesting and creative things he's doing with real estate. This is going to be a two-part. The first part we're going to talk about, which we're going to jump into right now, is stress management for entrepreneurs, and in particular for accountants during busy season, because that is a big chunk of our audience. And not only stress management, but wellness, focus, concentration. And Jason's going to have some fantastic ideas on what to do with your managing your breath, meditation, and other exercises and movements, and some things that are non-traditional that they don't teach you in your accounting classes, but they should teach you because we live very demanding and stressful lives here. But before we go, so Jason, can you in 60 seconds or less, and I think we would need more than that, but in 60 seconds or less, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little about what you do?
Well, Mark, thanks for having me on, and on the spot there of the different projects. Well, we can start with the town project, and I guess we'll go a little deeper into that, purchasing the town of Cleator. And we have a ranch, and we have a bunch of unique real estate projects that we do. But what I also do is I lead a company called Zen Wellness. I'm the co-founder, and we help people be better and with well-being. And there's a lot of different paths of well-being. I mean, I've been teaching this for about 30 years, been teaching breathing and teaching different types of meditation and different ways to just keep your body strong and your mind strong and centered, especially during stressful situations. I also have a music production company. I'm involved in a lot of different scores and musical scores for different musical apps. And I think we're just talking about, I'm writing the music for the Vatican right now for doing all their NFT and the Sistine Chapel and all of that. I have over 100 albums that I have done. We have music for like brain entrainment, music for focus, music for sleep, music for study, and using sound and vibration to, again, back to well-being, just to make you a little bit more focused and ultimately a little bit more happier. I'm not sure if I got that in 60 seconds or not. I think I'm close.
That was pretty good. And, the reason why I say that is because sometimes when I listen to other podcasts with guests and the guests introduce themselves, they'll go on for like 10 minutes. So that's why I just say 60 seconds. That was good. That was good. Okay, cool. So, when I originally thought about how we can talk, because when I found out how you and your friends have purchased a ghost town, I thought this was fascinating. And I know my clients like to do outside of the box strategy. So I was like, my clients would love to hear about this, but then also learning more about you and what you do and my industry, and me now having a team of about, I think like 8 or 9 people right now. And by the way, I'm always hiring, but me having a team, a team here, we do encounter lots of stress in busy
Yeah.
season,
Yeah.
and also they're in our industry. Now we can't get the exact stats, but we always hear about it in our industry that another guy died of a heart attack during
Yeah.
busy
Right.
season. This person has a stroke.
Right.
People are like literally giving their lives away to this field because of mental and physical health issues, and they don't know how to handle the strain of this job.
Right.
Now, one of the things, you wouldn't think that this is connected, but one of the things we had to do because of the labor shortage and the complexity of our work and ever expanding complexity, we had to increase prices on a lot of our clients. And I think you wouldn't think so, but there's such a strong correlation between all these issues and clients who are afraid to price what they're worth. And there's all of these psychological elements.
Right.
People are
Right.
afraid to charge for their value. And so they wind up not having the staff and the processes to support their undercharged stuff. And these are the people who are working to 5 a.m, gulping down coffee, not making a lot of money, making
Yeah.
mistakes and getting strokes. So it's like poorly pricing whatever you do in life, whether it's consulting or accounting. If you don't assign an appropriate price for you to function properly and live up to your promises, you can, believe it, I honestly think that you can literally kill yourself from underpricing who you are and what you do.
You know, I first heard this from Joe Polish. I don't remember who actually coined it, but here is the question. And the question is, if you had $1 million racehorse, how would you treat the horse? Would you, be nice to it, train it, give it massages, give it the best food, race it, exercise it, put it in a good environment? Or would you abuse it and stuff fast food down its face and make it stay up all night and just, stream it with negative thoughts and don't give it any massages or any wellness training? Don't let it sit and be still. Don't let it have any fun. How would you treat the horse? Well, chances are you'd be really, really nice to that horse, and you'd be really focused, really disciplined on the well-being of the horse. Why? It's the $1 million racehorse. Well, where I'm going with this is, guess what? You're the $1 million racehorse. And a lot of times you tend to treat yourself, especially in this industry. I've had a lot of students over the last quarter of a century in this industry, and sitting all day, you're very cerebral with a lot of stress. And so that's a combination. That's a really, really tough combination, because you don't get the blood flow, you don't get the energy flow, you don't get the breath and the oxygen, and all of your energy, your force goes into your head and your feet. It splits. Your feet putrefy and your head wants to explode. So not a good combination of sitting all day. Now, the good news, there's a lot of things you can do, and there's a lot of little things you can do even throughout the day to counterbalance it. But you have to start with the big picture and saying, how would I treat $1 million racehorse? Oh, guess what? I'm the $1 million racehorse. It would be wise for me to treat myself that way.
But so, and a lot of us are like, we're trying to punish ourselves, and we have this mindset of, oh, we're never good enough. Meanwhile, so a lot of it comes back to our perceived value of what we do, in how we price and present what we do. So it's interesting hearing your perspective as well. It's a lot about our value. And then when some people in some of our clients try to bargain or get discounted pricing or to sneak in things that they're not paying for, and they think they're winning, but what they're really doing is, if they're getting away with that with the firm, they're taking away from our ability to be functional and have productive relationships.
There's so much truth to that, and so many industries experience that. And I think one of the first thing is making just a commitment to treat yourself like $1 million racehorse. And if that's too much, okay, how about a $250,000 racehorse? Maybe not $1 million, and then just start to work up to it, because we're not effective in the same way 24/7. Like, for example, you have peak times where you're in the zone, you're in flow, everything is moving. And then you have other times of the day where you're just not very efficient, that you might be staring at something, things aren't things aren't coming together. And so in the arc of we could say a 24-hour day, but let's forget sleep or whatever. How many hours do you normally work? 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours? What give me a number.
More than I'd like to admit right now. So let's say 10.
Okay, let's go with 10. Nice even number. In the arc of a 10-hour day, not all hours are equal. Now, but really, if we examine that a little further, the hours are equal. You're not equal during those days. And part of self-mastery and just getting better at being $1 million racehorse is recognizing that. And okay, when are my peak flow times? One of the times I can take client calls. One of the times I got to shut off all distractions and just focus on things and get your schedule so that by the end of the day, you still feel good. And what I teach in our breath mastery training is how to even just take little 5-minute breaks throughout the day to get your head centered, to circulate some energy in your body, so it doesn't just putrefy in your feet, to get your body to function better, ultimately so that you can work better and you can do better work. And by the end of it, in the end of the day, here's the real challenge and the real mastery is, can you feel good at the end of the day, or do you feel blown out by the end of the day? If you go through a couple days or a couple weeks or a couple months and you just feel blown out, well, that is a hard thing to sustain over a long period of time. You had just mentioned heart attacks and all types of, body problems and issues start to come. And again, just go back to the $1 million racehorse, how you would treat the racehorse.
So it's funny, and shout out to Chuck Bauer and Jackie Meyer in the Tax Concierge program. And they taught us, one of the first things they taught us to do is to implement time blocking, and specifically in deliberately blocking time for exercise, for lunch, for emails, and, basing it on and not just ping-ponging between different activities and having zero focus, but based on, the optimal times, specifically blocking off that time for the concentration where you're not answering phones and you're not answering emails and you're just zoned in onto what you are designed to be doing at that time.
I get a new member and we say, for example, if someone says, hey, I have 30 minutes a week to invest in myself, and let's just use breath work as an example. Okay, it's a little low, but I'll take it. 30 minutes. There's a starting point. Well, I would much rather.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'd much rather have 5 minutes a day for 6 days than wait till Sunday and do 30 minutes.
Yeah.
If you can just take 5 minutes, and if you don't have 5 minutes a day for your wellness, then you maybe want to re-examine your lifestyle. And there's a saying about that, by the way. The master says to the student, hey, you need to meditate 20 minutes a day. I don't have 20 minutes a day. Then 10 minutes. I don't have 10 minutes. Then 5 minutes. I don't have 5 minutes. Then 1 minute. I don't have 1 minute. Well, if you don't have 1 minute, then you need 2 hours to meditate. But okay, I would rather have you do 5 minutes a day for 6 days than wait one day and do 30 minutes. Why? Think of it like taking showers. You can't wait till Sunday and take 7 showers. It doesn't work that way. When you do a little bit throughout the day, that starts to add up. And there is another, I'll use another metaphor or old story, and it's about the lumberjack. And the lumberjack is cutting the trees, and every day he gets less and less efficient. And the older lumberjack says to him, hey, why don't you stop and sharpen your blade? And the younger lumberjack says, I don't have time to sharpen my blade. I'm too busy cutting down trees. You don't want to be that lumberjack. You got to take time every day to just sharpen your blade. And what's the blade? The blade is you. It's your energy level. It's your vitality. It's your focus. And we can say overall well-being, but just simply just the circulation of energy and the circulation of blood, the circulation of breath. You had mentioned about heart attacks earlier. See, if you make it, this goes more for men than women over 40. If you make it to noon each day, you have a really good chance of living that day. Why? Most heart attacks happen before noon. Why do they happen before noon? Because at night, all of our blood goes into our center. It recirculates and then it goes out. Well, in the morning, if you don't do something to circulate the blood and get the blood into the extremities, the blood from the big toe into your pinky, it takes usually till about noon for it to naturally start to circulate. And when everything gets stuck is when you are more likely to have a heart attack. Now, that's a very incomplete definition of it. That's a real flyover version of that. But it is true about, you make it, hey, I made it till noon today. All right, I have a really good chance of living today. Well, I don't like those odds. I like to do things early in the morning to circulate, get my whole system circulated and my whole system functioning.
Awesome. So it sounds like, and I think you've talked about how starting your day is so important to get things taken care of. Groucho he sleeps all day though, as you can tell. He's back asleep. Cool. So, and then the sitting down stuff, I could feel it in my knees.
That's right. Right. That's right. We were not meant and physically designed to sit all day and stare at a computer screen. The body was not meant for that. The body doesn't like doing that. A few years ago, a study came out, and the conclusion of the study was sitting is the new smoking. That sitting all day is more dangerous to your health than smoking. And it really makes sense because, see, especially after you get past like your mid-30s and into your 40s and beyond, in your 20s, you can get away with it, but stagnation is not going to be our friend. Like when things stagnate, when your body stagnates, when it doesn't move freely, when your mind stagnates, when you don't have the flow, when you're not in the zone, you experience some type of stagnation. Well, that's generally not our friend.
Mm-hmm. So, for people like us, and this is probably true for all entrepreneurs, and I know that you serve and give courses for entrepreneurs. For people like us right now, and throughout the year, where we have tight deadlines, we have lots of documents and computer intensive stuff here. What are some action items that we can take to maximize our concentration, well-being, physical and mental health, and really just make sure that we can enjoy life as we endure these stressors and hit our deadlines and all that other good stuff?
Real simply, here's one. You stand up and you pump your calves up and down. Do it 10 times, 20 times. It'll take 10 seconds. If that, it'll take 5 seconds. But you just stand up and like bounce on your calves. Why is that? Well, in Oriental medicine, we say you have 3 hearts. You have your actual heart pump, and then you have lower abdominal breathing, and then you have your calves. And those are the 3 things you can do for blood circulation. And you pump your calves. Because if you look at the mechanics of a heart has a tough job. It's this little tiny small device that's tasked with circulating all your blood and circulating everything. It's a strange efficiency. So you got to help it out. So you help it out with lower abdominal breathing, your calves. And so if you're sitting for an hour, just stand up, pump your calves 10 times, 20 times. If you want to do it more, and then sit back down. It's small and it helps. And if you do it a couple times throughout the day, the little bit starts to add up and you'll just feel a little bit better by the end of the day. So sometimes it can be overwhelming. Oh, I'm so far off. I do so much sitting. I do so much thinking. It's very hard for me to do anything. What am I going to do? Go hire a personal trainer at the gym? I don't have the time to do that. Maybe I don't have the money to do that. And that's actually a really good point. Sometimes just getting started is the hardest part. Sometimes 0 to 1 is more difficult than 1 to 100. And how do you get started? With a little tiny thing. Stand up every hour or just when you're inspired and pump your calves. And then we can even add something else to it. While you're pumping your calves, take a deep breath. Do that once, just one time, and then sit back down and do your work and go back to it. and see how you feel. And then maybe a little bit later on, you're inspired to do it again. And maybe after a couple days, well, you're just doing it regularly and you are making it a habit. What won't happen is you're not going to lose any time. You're not going to lose any efficiency. You're not going to otherwise miss a deadline that you would have made. No, you're sharpening your blade. So everything you're going to do is going to be just a little bit more efficient and a little bit more focused. And that even ties into what I said earlier about out of a 10-hour day, not all those hours are equal, or you're not equal during those different hours. Everyone has a slightly different mojo. You might be a little more focused in the morning for work or afternoon. You might have an afternoon slump. And during an afternoon slump, well, that's a good time to take phone calls. That's a good time to open up things where you're talking to people and you don't have to sit and really focus and really think through problems, or maybe you get your mojo going at night. Sometimes you get it going later at night, where it's like there are no phone calls and you can just focus on your work. I mean, it doesn't matter what your mojo is. It matters that it works for you. I mean, if you got young kids, it's harder to do at night, or kids. I mean, everyone has a different schedule, but that's just part of, I like to use the word mastery. And mastery is not a destination. Mastery is a process. And if you're in this world, well, you're already pursuing mastery, even getting into this. And I don't even know what word we would use, financial mastery or accounting mastery, or what would be the word we would use for this profession? What type of mastery are you pursuing?
I would say professionals. That's a good question. I would say that we are mastering the delivery of the best quality tax services.
Okay. Right. Tax service delivery mastery.
Services.
Yeah. Okay. In tax service. So, okay. And so that's the mastery. Well, that's a complicated, vast subject that's constantly changing all the time. And if people have different opinions, I mean, that's a big subject to master here. And so, and ultimately what I talk about mastery is not an end destination. It's a process. Well, in the meantime, if that's kind of if that's the craft that you're mastering, well, master yourself as well so that you can do the best you can possibly do at the craft. And so you can think of it as twofold. There's internal and external. Internal is you, external would be the craft, and pursue mastery on both fronts. You're just going to be better. You'll wind up making more money, but it's not just the money. It's like getting to the finish line, because who cares if you make all this money and then you're all blown out and you can't enjoy it? It's like the old saying, the person with good health has 1,000 wishes. The person with poor health has one wish. So you don't want to abuse yourself through your career so that you're the person with only one wish. Now, if you're already at that point now and it's like, okay, well, my health is shot and I've totally destroyed myself and I've completely blown myself out. Okay, well, usually there's still something you can do to get a little bit better and a little bit better. This is obviously depends on the individual, but you can start with some breath work. You can start with some movement. You can start with pumping the calves. You can start with basically just moving the body. The body does not like stagnation, and it doesn't like you when you just sit for 10 hours a day.
Awesome. Okay. So what I want to know from you, and I see lots of people talking about starting the day off strong, but what I find is a big part of me being sustainable is how I end my day. Because if I try to go to sleep after working until like midnight, I can't sleep well, and then my morning is terrible.
Right.
And then it creates this perpetual feeling of just grumpiness. So what are some ideas that you may have on ending your day?
Okay. So it's like bookmarks, the beginning of the day and then also ending the day. And ultimately what matters is what works for you. It's, and what works in the individual. And that's going to change during different phases of life. Up until I was late 30s, I think about 40, I went to bed at 3 a.m. And I had young kids. And I was up early. That was just my mojo. I like to do stuff up until 3 a.m. I don't stay up till 3 a.m. My next birthday is 53. So I'm usually in bed by about midnight, and I'm up at 6 is usually my normal schedule. And you say, oh, wow, you only sleep 6 hours. Well, I can sleep 6 hours and do just fine because I will do different types of meditation throughout the day that kind of drop in almost to that REM sleep. It's like having a secret spending account. It's like having a secret like bank account that you can go spend with. And like, wait a minute, how do you survive on just that bank account? Well, I got this little secret bank account, and you can think of a bank account as just energy. And I'll answer your question here in a moment. But I like to think of energy, just your energy level, as currency. And what you don't want to do is spend more than you make. And I can ask an entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs, you say, hey, you need to spend less. Well, it's hard for an entrepreneur to spend less. I like to think of it as, no, you're not overspending, you're under depositing. How about just deposit more and fix the problem as opposed to spend less? Now, there's a lot of schools of thought on that, but go with me on this. Then if we can take that same thing on energy level, if I say to the average entrepreneur, or even if you say to the tax professional, hey, you need to work less. Working less is hard, especially if you're driven. You can even want to work less and you're not going to work less. So it's kind of like saying, hey, spend less. No, don't think of it as under or overspending. Think of it as under depositing, and flip your thinking. It's like, hey, I'm going to deposit more energy into my body so that I can sustain this. So actually I can work 10 hours and I can be a beast for 10 hours. And at the end of it, I can feel good. Why? I have so much energy. And so that's a little like judo flip in just even the thinking about it, because the things I start early morning, and I have a lot of activity and I have a lot of projects, and someone says to me, oh, you're so busy. I say, no, I'm never busy. Bees and beavers are busy. Don't be busy. Maybe I have some days I'm scheduled. I had a scheduling before this podcast, and then, right at 1 o'clock, I have another schedule. I have another meeting. Okay. Maybe you're scheduled, but it's always now, you're always here, and it's always you. So who cares if I had 5 things behind me and I have 5 things in front of me? Does that make me busy? I don't know, but I'll be present right now with whatever I'm doing, whether there's 10 things next coming after or nothing. It doesn't matter because it's still now. So answering your question about finishing the day, well, everyone has a little different work on that. And I don't know what your work is. If you just like to button it up and stop thinking about all your work, for some that works well, especially if you have family or have kids. Sometimes you can have, hey, I'm going to be done with everything. I'm going to do my last email or do my last thing, and then button it up. And then I'm done until the morning, and I'm going to focus on something else. I'm going to focus on family. I'm going to focus on whatever it is you want to focus on at night. That's kind of one way. That's like the complete turnoff and the complete shutdown. Another option to do, and again, there's a bunch of variations that can work on this, is that you think through and set the intention for the next day. Doesn't have to be long. I got this wonderful tool. This was actually at a Genius Network meeting. It was the book, The Road Less Stupid. What a wonderful business book.
Well, that guy's good. Yeah.
Keith Cunningham. Yeah. And it was the first time I had ever heard the concept of thinking time. Now we talk about time blocks, and this is a little different. And I do no thinking time, like meditation time, but where you stop everything down and you say, okay, I'm just going to spend this time to think about something and to think about it. It's almost like time blocking thinking time. It was a funny concept. And you can apply that in so many different ways. Okay, I'm going to fully think through whatever it is that you're going to think through. Well, one thing you can just think through is the next day. And you think it through. And then what I like to do with thinking through is, like, you think it through, then you stop thinking about it. You just let it bubble in the subconscious mind. When I do a breath mastery for entrepreneur training, what we do at the end, we take 5 minutes at the very end, and you set one intention, one focus for the day. Can be a big, can be small, can be really, really specific with this one client or this one job you have or something, or it can just be, hey, I need to I want to bring more gratitude into my life for the day. I mean, so it can be anything you want it to be. You focus on it, just 30 seconds or so, and then you're done. Don't think about it anymore. And I make the analogy, it's like shooting an arrow into space. So you throw that idea out there, goes into your subconscious mind, but it also goes out and in simultaneously. And then you go to the blank slate. You clear the calculator. You go to the spot where you lessen the incessant stream of thinking. Because see, there's a big, I used to think the word mindfulness, there's a mindfulness and a mindfulness industry. I used to think that was put together by an evil priest, by a very bad person was trying to trick everybody away from the truth by using the word mindfulness. As I researched it more, it was actually an innocent mistake, because let's think about that for a moment. So here's the statement. Mindfulness is wrong. Everything you've learned about mindfulness is probably wrong and probably backwards. Why? Well, think about it. Mindful. Do you need more things in your mind? Do we need to put your head with more stuff? It's actually the opposite. The happiness is not going to come and fulfillment's not going to come by dumping more things in your head. No, you already have too many things in your head. It's actually the correct word, or a better word would be mind emptiness. Ooh, but we talk about mindful. No. And then the other trick is when someone says, or the industry, it will say, you need to work on being more mindful. Nope, that's actually completely wrong. Why? It's mind empty. Zen is just mind empty. And mind empty doesn't mean mindless, because we think of the word mindless as like being stupid and being not present. No, mind empty is just being fiercely present. When your mind is empty, you see everything, you hear everything, you feel, you smell. It's like your senses are actually become very intense. And when your mind is empty, if you're focusing on something, that's how you get into the zone. That's how you get into the flow. And presence is not something you can work on. Presence is only something you can experience. And you can even think of it this way. It's all you have to do is remember. Remember to be present. And there's only one time of the day that you need to remember to be present. And that time is now. Because you can't work on being present in the future. That doesn't make any sense. Now, so a little story where that word comes from, and I believe it was like 1909 or 1910, a Buddhist scholar, T.W. Davis, translated the Sanskrit word sati, S-A-T-I, to mean mindful. So I think it was an innocent mistake. Probably a better translation of that word would be aware or awareness. Maybe the word present. Sometimes these words are hard to translate. They don't go like exactly the old Sanskrit from, a Sanskrit word to an English word. But then it just stuck. And I think in the 70s or something, a couple authors came around, started calling it mindful, and an entire industry was born, and it's all wrong. I think that's a long answer to your question.
No, it's good. That's good. Okay, and so what a lot of people in our industry are doing is they to deal with the stress and everything, they stress eat, they eat sweets, alcohol, and caffeine. And in particular, it's almost, I would say, I definitely say I've seen in some of the in particular larger firms, alcohol is celebrated. They do a weekend happy hour and all this stuff, which I mean I'm not against, but we also see lots of problems with obesity and all sorts of stuff. And, they never do healthy happy hours at any of the employers I ever had at my prior jobs. They never really do healthy things. They talk about those as groups. So in addition to the obvious things we should stop doing as crutches to manage stress, like those items, what are some things that maybe you see people are doing that we should stop doing in this area of coping with and handling stress?
Yeah. Well, and that's more of a kind of a bigger picture, like a holistic picture of looking at everything, because, is alcohol good or bad? Is sugar good or bad? Well, look, alcohol can be used as medicine or poison. Sugar can be, medicine, or it can be used in moderation and sugar's fine. We need some sugar. Our body needs it. Alcohol can be used in moderation. It's kind of like you say fire. Is fire good or bad? Well, that's kind of an absurd question because, fire can cook your steak and it can burn down your house. So it's how it's used. Is alcohol good or bad? Well, you can have alcohol in moderation and you can use it and you can feel good and you can be very, very healthy. Or, of course, it can be abused. There's an old saying, and I forget who said it. I think Benjamin Franklin or one of those old dudes said it, that if you are prone to excess, you're better off with abstinence. And so if you can't have one beer, if you need 15 beers, well, then you're probably better off with no beers as opposed to 15 if you can't do one, if you're just, for whatever reason, and no judgment there, if you're just not capable of doing one. And so some of these things in moderation is okay. What I find is when you're starting to focus on the $1 million racehorse, when you're going from the nothing to something, the hardest part is just the commitment to making the decision. That's the hardest part of saying, okay, I'm going to do it. But you usually have more success when you think it's like a marathon, not a sprint. Because, okay, I'm going to quit everything. I'm going to go cold turkey and no sugar and no alcohol. And I'm going to go to the gym and hire a personal trainer. Sometimes that's the worst thing to do. And I'm going to try and make all these changes overnight. And you maybe last a week or two and then you blow out. And then a month later, you're back doing the same thing. So usually you're better off. Just do a little step. Think the turtle beats the rabbit every time. Just a little bit. And a lot of times, even in the beginning, as opposed to taking away something and saying, oh no, you can't have that candy during the day, and you're better off not eating candy during the day, but I'm talking in the starting here, you're better off adding breathing. Or you say, okay, before I eat a piece of candy, I'm going to do 10 deep breaths, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, and you just do that 10 times. Then if you still want the candy afterwards, have a piece of candy. If you don't want the candy afterwards, okay, actually, you know what? I don't feel like eating it now, but maybe I'll have a piece later. And then you do the same thing, okay? If you're drinking, a little thing you can do with alcohol is in between each drink, have a glass of water. You'll sleep way, way better. It was actually a sleep doctor mentioned that to me because alcohol is a dehydrating event. And so your night won't be any less awesome if you put a glass of water in between each drink, however many drinks you're going to do. And it's like a little tiny thing you can do and to just make a movement. Because if you're off by, I don't know, let's use a degree. If like you have a straight line in your lifestyle, you would say, oh, wow, I'm off by 20 degrees. Well, to shift 20 degrees overnight is hard. Just do 1 degree and then 1 degree and then 1 degree. And we have a lot. I mean, I've been doing this before before the internet. I mean, we used to have like VHS tapes. Our long distance program used to be someone would make a VHS tape copy of them, doing some stuff and then send it to us and we'd watch it and, analyze it and make a tape going back. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time here before the Zoom calls. So we find that you're better off doing a little bit than trying to do everything overnight.
Awesome. Okay, very cool. And we may have to do a separate conversation on clear because there's so much cool stuff. We'll dive into that in just a little bit. But being that it's busy season and we're going to send this out to our friends, I think they'll really appreciate this conversation here and especially with just taking deep breaths and pumping your calves, something very, very simple that you can add to your day. Can you give us, so you talked about the exercise here. If you give us like a demonstration of something that we could do on a daily basis here with the breathing, so we can, so as far as an actionable item, we can incorporate this into our day-to-day and try. So I actually tried your sample of your course and I've been doing the breathing and it feels fantastic. So if you could just explain what that is to the audience, and just to give them something actionable and help them with surviving their stressors in busy season.
Okay, how about this? How about take about 90 seconds? I want to do a little breathwork exercise for 90 seconds?
I think that we can afford 90 seconds.
I think
Is
so. And if you
everybody-
can't afford 90 seconds, you need 2 hours. If you
Yeah.
can't do that. Okay, we're going to do, this is so simple and so old. This is a very, very old, and it's called box breathing. Sometimes it's called combat breathing. And all it does is it regulates your nervous system, and it really helps you focus. The Marines do this in combat. So, when you have bullets flying overhead, whatever stressful situation you're in, it's probably not as much as bullets flying overhead. Winston Churchill once said, there's nothing more exhilarating than to be shot at without result. And so this is a little breathing exercise you can do. So here's what we're going to do. I'm actually going to cue some music, and we're going to take, every time you hear the bell, is 4 seconds. All we're going to do is breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds. So each cycle is going to take 16 seconds. So here we go. So shoulders relaxed. It's best if you can close your eyes when you do this, but open is okay. And here we go. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. In. Hold. Exhale. Hold. In. Hold. Exhale. Hold. In. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Last one. Here we go. In. Hold. Okay, now exhale. Now don't breathe in. Hold the exhale. 3 short breaths out through your mouth. And hold one more bell. Okay. And then breathe in. And breathe out. That was 90 seconds.
I think I needed that. Thank you so much.
We all need that. But when you focus on your breath, see, the breath is like it's the gateway between the body and the mind, is in the breath. What it does, it regulates your emotions and it makes you even. And if you have any type of anxiety or stress or whatever, which a lot of times just means your mind is all over the place, come back to the breath and box breathing. Count in for 4, hold, out for 4, and hold. And I have a whole series of albums, a whole series of music that we do for that. Actually, what we just heard is not released, and I intentionally do that because sometimes if you put this on Facebook or a DSP, they'll block it. My publisher does that, and Facebook is actually kind of really difficult with music. So I have unpublished music that I'll use for these events that that Facebook and anyone else who has it won't block the music.
Cool. So for those who've enjoyed this, where can they learn more and do more with this box breathing and all the other techniques that you have to really dive into wellness, using your methodologies and learning more about maintaining the best possible mental and physical and emotional and psychological state throughout the day?
Yeah. If you go to zenpiano.com, there are courses in there. Now, I have a breath mastery for entrepreneur training that is not anywhere on the web, anywhere. You'll never see it. It's invitation only. You have to send us an email from the website. We make it a little difficult to get into because it's highly curated. And then we meet a couple mornings a week, and there's recordings and stuff. And we go through this whole process of breathing, and we use breath as the gateway, but ultimately it's about stilling your mind and being able to empty your thoughts and get really, really clear and get into the zone and get into a flow state. So it's specifically for entrepreneurs that we do, but you can find that at the zenpiano.com site.
And we can also find your music on Spotify, right? Just we type Jason Campbell.
Yeah, there's a few other Jason Campbell. So if you write like Jason Campbell Zen Piano, I do a new album the fourth Friday of every month. I release a new album. And so I have Zen Piano albums. We just did this one project. We flipped opera on its head. It's called New Opera. Traditionally, opera is an external drama that expands. And I said, okay, what if we looked at your internal drama and dissolve it? And then we use some like old Vedic mantra to dissolve drama. You don't listen to the notes, you listen to the space in between the notes. So yes, there's a whole series of musical projects that are on there, but you can find them on Zen Piano or Spotify, iTunes, or all the music services.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So we got I'm glad we got to really discuss this. And there's a whole, we could talk for hours about this other thing you're doing. You just happen to have purchased a town. But we got 10 minutes before we both got to jump into other meetings. But let's talk about Cleater. Yeah. And my clients when I told them about what you're doing, because I have some clients doing some ambitious stuff, whether it's glamping or buying hotels or event spaces. They had some FOMO to find out that you're doing something more creative than what they are doing. So tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing with
well, here's the origin story of it. This was about a year and a half ago. I saw a news report on a town was for sale, Cleator, Arizona. You can Google this, Cleator. And I sent a copy of it to Joe Polish. And I sent it was a joke. I said, hey, want to buy a town? Ha ha ha. And immediately he texts me back, well, maybe. I'm like, no, I don't want to buy a town. What am I going to do with the town? I don't know anything about writing a town. And he's like, well, it might be an interesting thing. And we circled the wagon for months about yes, no, do we buy it? And, we got two other partners involved in it finally when we did it. But there's a bunch of reasons for actually pulling the trigger on the town. And one was, I thought to myself, how many opportunities do you have in a lifetime to purchase a town that's within 1 hour of your residence? Because Cleator's like, I live in Arizona, North Phoenix, and so it's an hour north. And so I thought to myself, at most one that you get in a lifetime. It's not, I'm going to pass on Cleator, but I'm just going to buy another town that comes available. It's probably not going to come available in buying a town. And so we wound up purchasing it. And then Joe really did this. He put together a website called whatsyourcleator.com. And the metaphor for what's your Cleator is there a project, an ambition, something that is outside your comfort zone that you want to move towards, and that it's okay to say yes? Because when we bought it, we had no plan. We just bought it like we're to blank canvas. Okay, we're just going to acquire the asset. And once we acquire the asset, then we'll figure out what to do with it. And, it's been just about a year now, I think a year and a month as we're giving this talk here. And we're still making it up as we go along. But some of the cool stuff we've done, we've put it in VR. So you can, if you have a virtual reality, you can get an app called Retreat, Retreat. And then there's Cleator, and we go into what's your Cleator. It's a free little thing that we did. You can get Retreat for free and get the what's your Cleator little program in that. We had a really successful NFT launch where you become a citizen, and then we had a whole party for everybody. We bussed everybody up there, and we did this whole what's your Cleator. People were crying dreams and opening up your dreams this coming weekend. Although I guess I'll say it, here, it's kind of a secret because we don't want it to get too big. There's only a couple hundred people are going to show up at it, but we're doing a big art festival, like this massive kind of Burning Man mojo ish with, you know, flamethrowers and fire breathing dragons and live music and shows and all types of stuff. It's gonna be like a giant party. People are going to be camping out. We, for the first time in Cleator's history, Cleator was founded in 1864, before the state of Arizona that was founded in 1912. And it was an old mining town. At one point, they had a school, a post office, a railroad, and the town was packed. You know, then usually when the precious metal runs out, then things go. But little side note, the U.S. government outlawed all mining during World War II. So all these mines out here had to shut down. Most never reopened. And so Cleator never had water. And we got water in Cleator 700 feet down. We dug a well. So the first time in Cleator's history that it has ever had water. And so we're cleaning stuff up. We're doing construction. There is a bar there. There's a house, and it's you know, if you brought a 6-shooter and some spurs, you'd fit right in. So it is an old Wild West ghost town. But this is our biggest event we have now in the next couple weeks. I mean, it'll be packed. But it's this unique little place on the way to a town called Crown King. You're out in the middle of the Bradshaw Mountains, like out in the middle of the desert. You're in the middle of nowhere, and you go over this hill, and then all of a sudden, there's a town. You know, if you go there on a Friday night, there'll sometimes be 200 people there at the bar. So it's this massive hangout. You know, it's just like having a stop in geography. To get from like the main highway out here out to Crown King, you have to pass it. And so we get a ton of traffic. And so we're just doing more cool things. I mean, we have a ton of other stuff planned for the town. But the bottom line is we're making it up as we go along. We're building the road one brick ahead of the army here.
That's awesome. Now, I mean, it's super exciting to see entrepreneurs with that type of attitude and mindset and see how things unfold. Do you have any challenges with like owning a town and like
where to begin?
Like, do you tax the residents and providing the water? There's got to be all sorts of like red tape and paperwork and tax complexities that I sympathize and admire whoever's doing the legal and tax work on this.
Okay, well, boy, where to start? See, it's easy in these interviews. You know, I tell you all the happy stuff and all the really cool stuff, but behind the scenes, there's usually a shit show, and this one's no different. So there's always a snake in the grass, and actually in Cleator, it's both literal and metaphorical that there's problems. Oh yeah, there's all types of problems, and problems with dealing with county, and there's residents, like a dozen or so residents, and there's, you know, we had to get, there's squatters. The other day we had to kick a squatter out. This guy was like setting up shop. I mean, setting up a fence. He's building a house. He's building a house in our town. I'm not making this up. And we had to go there and kick him out. And what are you doing here? Well, so I guess some other resident that used to be a resident there was renting space to him. Don't you love that? You know, people renting space in your property. And, you know, this guy had a whole world that he was setting up. He basically built a house.
Wow.
And we had to get him. Yeah. So that was, there's a lot more. So no, behind the scenes, like on the brochure, you know, it's so awesome. And it's this really cool, fun thing, but just like any project, you know, and just like anything you do, it's not all fun and easy on the front end. There's usually stuff that's challenging and difficulty on the back end. But if everything were easy, nothing would be easy. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like if you're always happy, you're never happy. So you need a little bit of the opposite, whatever you want to call the opposite of happiness, to create happiness. If everything was blue, nothing would be blue. So you need its opposite to create it. And, you know, maybe we can meet again and go a little bit deeper into that and deeper into some of the stuff we're doing in Cleator. And I didn't even talk about this ranch. You know, in the period of, I think, 6 months, we acquired a handful of properties that had been in one family for over 100 years.
Wow.
out here. Yeah, some old historic, like older than the state. You know, they started out as what's called land patents, which is different than having a deed. Completely different legality of having a deed. Counties hate land patents. They hate them because they predates the county. So they'll come at you with their army of lawyers to stop you from doing what you want. But the old land patents, you could basically do anything on them. Do anything you want. And it was pre Arizona. So it was like, who has the authority in the land? And that's this problem is the county has more guns, bullets, armies, cages, and lawyers than we have. So fighting county is a little tough with that. So sometimes, you know, you're better off getting along.
Wow. You know, and so, I mean, I imagine that there's all sorts of, I mean, I imagine we're only scratching the surface here. I'm wondering, and although I doubt it, well, I doubt there's any historical tax credits, but there might be some opportunities with grants and all the nonprofit stuff. It's really interesting that you're so resourceful using things like NFTs to raise capital and create this community through NFTs. So NFTs are not just a scam to sell little doodles. There's so many other creative things you can do with
membership
NFTs.
and value and access. And having access to cool things. It's kind of like, you know what, and I have another meeting here we'll have to start, but it's like, I think of NFTs as currency on steroids. It can be a title, it can be access to a membership, it can be proof of ownership, you know, it can be, I say currency, some type of crypto, you know, currency in that way. So no, we've had a few successful NFT launches. I do like the NFT world.
Very cool. So I know we both got to wrap things up. One thing I want to point out is if you want to buy a town, as I have asked Jason, as I was so curious, you can simply Google towns for sale and you'll find little towns for sale. So, you know, to the audience getting ambitious here and having ideas as, you know, sprouting up in your head, you know, take a look, see what you can find. And, you know, hopefully I can refer you guys to Jason's accountants and attorneys to take care of that. Jason, thank you so much. I'm going to put in the show notes everything you need to contact you and all the cool resources. One last thing, is there anything you would like to request or an action item or a call to action to the audience?
The call to action is do a little bit for your own wellness and your own well-being. Just one dollop, even if it's 30 seconds, even if it's 60 seconds, but you do a little bit, and that adds up. The turtle beats the rabbit every time. You're not sure when to start? How about right now? How about right now, stand up and pump your calves 10 times while taking 3 deep breaths. Those little things add up.
Wonderful. What a great way to end it. Jason, thank you so much for your time. We'll be sending this out, and I hope everybody enjoys it. Subscribe for more. Again, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Mark, thanks for having me. Be well.
Awesome. Take care.
Bye.